Well, my brothers and sisters, as I read and prayed over the readings and the gospel for today, the theme that kept leaping out at me was self-identity. That is, perceived self-identity versus true self-identity. Now, you see, in today's first reading, Amos's self-identity was shepherd and gardener, but God identified him as a prophet to Israel. Quite a difference. And then St. Paul tells us that our Father, out of nothing but love, adopted us to himself, making us, like Jesus, into his daughters and his sons, holy and without blemish. Now, isn't that amazing? And finally, in the gospel, Jesus sends his disciples out to be his presence, the presence of Christ in and for the world, to heal, to forgive sins, to drive out demons, to raise the dead, and to proclaim the good news. Now, you and I tend to derive our sense of self-identity from two main things, actually. Either from the kind of person we perceive ourselves to be, like Amos, or we try to get our identity from what we do, our career, our lifestyle, our interests, or even from our nationality. So we might perceive ourselves as likable or kind, a good listener maybe, or easily provoked, or easy to please, or irritable, or maybe we perceive ourselves as a hard worker, or whatever. Or we may identify ourselves as a scientist or a teacher, a musician, or a priest. We may identify as Afro-American or Italian, a woman, or maybe as successful, or maybe we see ourselves as a failure, or anything in between success and failure. But the truth is, actually, that our true identity can only be that which can never be destroyed or taken away. Our true identity can only be that which can never be destroyed or taken away. Our true identity is who and what we are before we are born and after we take our last breath and forever. Our true identity is who we and what we are before we are born and after we take our last breath and forever. And so you and I come here every week to celebrate our true identity. We are the sons and daughters of God, the siblings of Jesus, the incarnate presence of Christ in and for the world. We eat his physical presence. We drink his life in the Eucharist. We are his presence, his life in and for the world. Now, sisters and brothers, we somehow seem to be afraid to really go all the way with that commission, with that calling, with that realization. I've often heard people say, well, isn't it enough to just say that we are called to be like Christ, but not that we actually are Christ? Well, my sisters and brothers, no, that's not enough. I think that one of the main fears that we have is that if we really believe that we are actually Christ for the world, then we would become puffed up or conceited or arrogant. It's what we might think. Even thinking that others should maybe bow or kneel before our greatness, or that we're better than others. But the truth of the matter is, that's our vision of Christ. God's version of Christ, on the other hand, is Jesus. God's version of Christ is Jesus. My friends, search the scriptures. Was Jesus any of these things? Puffed up, arrogant, conceited? And by the way, did Jesus ever ask anyone to bow or kneel or to worship him? You won't find it anywhere. Then what makes you think that fully realizing that you are Christ for the world would make you that way? On the contrary, just like our Lord and our brother Jesus, you and I, are chosen and destined in accord with the purpose of the one who accomplishes all things according to the intention of his will. We are called and we are anointed to be Christ's real presence in and for the world. This is our true identity. Healing, reconciling, driving out demons, raising the dead to new life, proclaiming the good news of the gospel by the way that we live our lives. Brothers and sisters, to incarnate means to embody or to give flesh to. In other words, to make real, to incarnate. And so I'd like to leave you with this question. If you and I do not incarnate Christ for our world today, then who will? If we don't, who will?